Hello, everyone, and welcome to 3 o'clock with SOC. My name is Maria, and I am the lead community organizer at SOC. I will be co-moderating with Tammy for today's show. I look forward to that, and I want to thank you all for joining us today. Just give me 1 second while I welcome our Spanish-speaking guest. Buenas tardes a todos y bienvenidos a nuestro foro de 3 en punto con SOC. Mi nombre es María, soy una organizadora de la comunidad en SOC. Hoy estaré presentando junto con Tammy. Muchas gracias por estar con nosotros y espero que disfruten el foro de hoy. La traducción de hoy estará disponible por teléfono. Solamente marque el número 646-749-3122 y la contraseña 779-328-221. This is a reminder that the link to the recorded English and Spanish versions of the episode is on our Facebook page and YouTube in the link. Before we get started, I would also like to give a shout out to our Facebook forum team for today. We have Andrea and Marisol helping with production and Travis in the comments section, and Marlene as our guest technical assistant. Thank you all. I would also like to remind you that SOC is here for you. You can reach us via phone at 414-672-8090 or visit our website, socmilwaukee.org. You can also email us at soc@socmilwaukee.org. Also, I would like to encourage you to fill out our survey, which you will see in the comments section. This is to ensure that your voice is heard and we bring content that is of interest to you. Another reminder that all of SOC staff is working virtually from home, and that is why you see us on the screen without masks at this time. Now I would like to invite you all to say hello in the comments. We would like to see who is all joining us today. So once again, thank you all for tuning in, and please feel free to comment if you're here because we can't really see who's all here. And thank you all for joining us today. We would like to also extend our solidarity with protesters. Thank you to those people who are voicing their thoughts and opinions through protest. This is also to add a disclaimer that the views and opinions shared today do not necessarily reflect those of SOC. And now I will have Tammy give us some announcements.
Good job, Maria. I want you all to congratulate Maria in the comments section. This is her first time moderating or co-moderating, and she did an incredible job starting off. Don't you agree? So why don't you give her some encouragement, because that's a very terrifying thing. You all know and heard many times in psychology classes that the number one fear of humans is public speaking. And so let's give her some encouragement and thanks. And she started out on a great foot. Maria, you did awesome.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, folks, today is Friday, and as you know, we rolled into our new format. This is week 2, maybe 3 now. And today, the theme for Fridays is our community organizing, our leadership, and our community development. Today, we have a great guest, and I'll bring him on shortly. The rest of the week, next week, we have again Monday, civic engagement, Tuesday, the youth, Wednesday, the all Spanish day, Thursday, the coronavirus day. And there's an excellent guest, Janan Najib. She's the CEO and president from the Milwaukee Muslim Women's Association, and she'll be with us. That's super exciting. And then next Friday again, we have this same theme day. And so stay with us, folks. In addition to like the segment that lifts up a special feature, we continue to bring you the latest critical updates, the latest on COVID, the latest on the census, and the latest on the elections and civic engagement activity. So even if you may not want, you may not care that it's COVID Day or Organizing and Leadership and Community Development Day, remember that you're still getting everything else. And we're having great guests in all of those segments, so you don't want to miss it. In case we missed it, because I got a note here, a message. The views and opinions shared on today's forum don't necessarily reflect those of SOC because we're a 501c3 nonprofit. That's a certain type of nonprofit. So we got to make sure we share that disclaimer. All right, folks. Thanks for that reminder to my staff. And then I want to give you an update. We as a local community and a nation have been addressing the issue of law enforcement reform, law enforcement abuse of power, and racial injustice and social justice matters. And so I want to give you an update. I've been talking to you continuously about a working body, a commission that SOC is part of, which is called the Community Collaborative Commission. And to recap, that was an effort started almost 3 years ago in response to the Department of Justice review of MPD and the Fire and Police Commission. And they issued a report, and the community gathered around to look at that and give feedback, which ended up in us doing 45 hubs across the city. 18 organizations participated in that. SOC held the Safety Summit with over 100 people in attendance to give feedback on how can we strengthen community police relations. And many of you participated. Anyway, that group, the CCC, continues. It's an official commission of the City of Milwaukee Common Council. And so we're taking that work forward. Right now, we're implementing the recommendations that came out of that. Anyway, in the midst of that recently, because of the uprisings, the mayor launched a task force that appeared to be very similar to that work, and there was a struggle. You saw that power struggle between the CCC and the mayor's office. There was a meeting that wasn't very successful. But anyway, after that, some movement, negotiation, and improved. And so the mayor relaunched that task force, and with a different title and a sort of broader purpose. And it's called the Mayor's Task Force on Racial Equity, Justice, and Police Accountability. So I want to give you an update. We had they asked me to be on the task force as a CCC member and as a as SOC, and so I agreed to be on there as SOC because now we have new leadership for the CCC, and the leadership was present. And so the gist of it was the first meeting with the task force was an explanation of the mayor's vision for that. The Office of Violence Prevention, Reggie Moore and his team did a lot of work in this negotiation and carving out the task force. And so it was a lot of intros. There were over 50 community organizations or city institutions and leaders involved, and it was a lot of intro stuff. And so we'll keep you abreast. The first session happened. We'll keep you abreast on what's happening with that task force and how the CCC is feeling about that. But I wanted you to know what we know, and so you're in the know. That's what happened with all that drama that took place with that task force and the CCC. All right, with that being said, today we're focusing on community development. We've had a long time partnership with the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, and I'd like to invite on Kevin Muse, the Executive Director. Hola, Kevin.
Hi, Tammy. Thanks for having me.
Of course, haven't seen you in a while, so it's good to see your face. You doing well?
I am. You?
Yeah, I'm a little tired. Tired and a lot grumpy these days, and I'm sure my staff and my kids will attest to.
Yeah.
But glad to have you on because it's been a little bit that we were trying to align our schedules. I'll give a little background about SOC's partnership with you, and then I'd love to hear, what is contained within your role of the executive director, and then talk about the commission, and then of course get to the matter at hand, which is sharing the equity analysis that many of us participated in. All right, folks, so the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission and SOC have had a partnership to do outreach in the community, and so several times we've combined efforts to invite residents and including youth to participate in and give input into plans for Milwaukee and greater areas, really.
Mhm.
A lot of that had to do with transportation and public space, etc. We had some really major victories because many of our resident associations participated in it. Many of our Spanish-speaking folks and many of our youth, and so it's critical, right, Kevin, to get a variety of dreams and concerns from the community as we plan for 2015. So at some point or another, folks, you probably were invited to one of these sessions. There have been a variety of them, numerous of them. And we've also partnered with you all on our retro ball. You have helped us out with having our, even before the pandemic, us trying to be a little digital, Kevin, if you remember,
I
we
do.
use your clickers to have
Yeah.
people vote at the retro ball, including they voted like, what's the next theme, which for us is the future for our next retro ball. So we thank you for
Yeah.
all your partnership and your staff. Nikki, she's like, a part of the SOC family. She shows up and we love her, and we like that you all are present with us, which is the way partnerships should happen. All right, Kevin, talk to us about what you do as the executive director.
Sure. Thanks, Tammy. And first of all, just right back at you as far as the partnership. We really appreciate our partnership with SOC, and I know Nikki really enjoys working so closely with you guys. So as executive director, I direct the staff of the Regional Planning Commission, and we are an agency that serves the greater Milwaukee area, which is 7 counties in our case. Basically everything in Milwaukee, it's suburban counties, and then everything between Milwaukee and the state line to the south. So we provide advisory planning services, looking out to the future for anything related to land use, housing, commercial development, environmental areas, things like that. And then also public infrastructure. So your roads, your transit services, your sewers, things like that, stormwater, flooding. We do work in all of those areas. So almost anything the government owns, we advise those local units of government, the county and the state on issues that impact that. So that's our primary purpose.
Lots of work to do. And just to give people sort of a picture of what one of those sessions looks like, often we're in a room, we have big posters and maps, and we talk about like the amount of resources available and how do we prioritize. Do we need more bike space? Do we need more bus? Do we need more walking space? Do we need more green space? If a business is going to come in, what's important to us? How does it affect the environment, etc.? So it's very usually interactive. People digging in and then being able to communicate that, just to give them a little slice of that. So do an overview of Vision 2050, and then let's dig into what the analysis shown.
Sure. Yeah. Should I share my screen here? I can do that. Oh, or it looks like Maria might be doing that. That'll work.
Yeah, just let them know when it's the next slide.
Sure. I can do that.
Kevin, we have, there we go.
There we go. So we can actually go to skip a couple slides ahead because I think we pretty much talked about this already. There we go. So, so Vision 2050. So one of our jobs as the Regional Planning Commission is, as Tammy said, look out into the future, take public input, as Tammy talked about, and try to reflect what the hopes and dreams for the public and private land, and then also the public infrastructure is for the region. And in this case, we're looking out to 2050, so 30 years into the future from now. Some of you that are listening today may have participated in some of these planning efforts. As Tammy said, we have had quite a few over the years. So the result of all those interactive efforts and all those various workshops and public input was Vision 2050, which is our long-range land use and transportation plan. And so through this plan, we're making recommendations to local units of government and the state government regarding land development and transportation for the future. Next slide. So something I wanted to just briefly talk about, because it kind of sets the stage for the equity part of our discussion today, is that as part of doing Vision 2050, pretty early in the process, we wanted to look at other peer areas across the country. So these are other large-ish metro areas, other cities that probably have about 2 million people or so in them, roughly. And we wanted to compare ourselves here in Milwaukee to those other areas across the country. And what we found is that we're a relatively slow growth area. We don't have a ton of additional population or additional jobs coming in every year, but we do have some. We have pretty significant racial disparities. The educational attainment, poverty status, things like that, the difference between white people and people of color in the region is pretty dramatic in southeastern Wisconsin, and it's something that I know that SOC works on regularly to try to address through things like the committee that Tammy was just talking about. So we found that as part of our comparison to peer regions, and it's something that we used as a guide as we were developing the actual plan. And then something else we found is we have a pretty unbalanced transportation system. We have a pretty robust street and highway system, although some of the roads could be in better shape. We do have quite a few, and generally traffic isn't too bad in our area. But we found that we don't have transit services that are time competitive with driving, and we probably don't have as many bike facilities as we could have. We have a pretty good trail system, but not as robust of on-street bike lanes and bike facilities as other peer areas across the country. Next slide. So just talking a little bit more about those racial disparities, because they're really important to the planning effort and then how we analyze the benefits of the plans we ended up recommending. So in the Milwaukee metro area, people of color, which is anyone who's not white alone, non-Hispanic, are 4.5 less likely than whites to have a high school diploma, 2 times less likely than whites to have a bachelor's degree, and a little over 4 times more likely than whites to have incomes at or below the poverty level. And I think anybody who's paid attention to these issues knows that there's a long legacy and history as to why these things have occurred. One of the reasons is because of some of the infrastructure and the planning decisions we've made in the past. And so we're hoping to address some of those as part of this planning effort. Next slide. So I won't spend too much time on this because Tammy talked about it for me a little bit. But when we were developing the plan, we did have workshops across the region and in multiple places in Milwaukee with multiple partners like SOC. And so again, if any of you participated in those SOC events, you know what those were like, but lots of questions and answers, lots of interactive maps, lots of images and rating of images and things like that, trying to help you tell us what you want the future of your region to look like. This was a very extensive process. Next slide. So what did we end up with? And I'm just going to highlight a few key things here. This is actually a slide I use in more than one presentation, but happens to be South 5th Street here. So the plan recommends really investing in our urban neighborhoods that already exist across the region, making them better places to live, having more job growth in those areas, and making them more robust and stable as well. As part of that, the flip side is what happens in the rest of the region. And so we also talk a lot and make recommendations and work on policies that will help preserve environmental areas and preserve agricultural land too, to make sure that we continue to have robust prime farmland in our region. Next slide. I talked a little bit about how we compare on bicycle and pedestrian elements. And so the plan does recommend improvements to sidewalks in our area and also further expansion to bike facilities across the region. This means we do have a pretty good trail system, but there are gaps in that trail system. You know, if you're thinking of the south side of Milwaukee and you want to bike downtown, you've got the KK River Trail, which is nice in certain areas, but then in other areas you have to get back on the street, and you may not feel as comfortable on your bike on that on-street portion. And so filling in those gaps so that there's really a comfortable corridor connecting the major destinations in the region is one of the big recommendations in the plan. There's also recommendations to expand on-street bike facilities, and do things that will separate those on-street facilities from moving traffic. So as you can see here, nope, that was actually fine. Next slide. As you can see on this slide, there are some, and I recognize this is difficult, but this is a map of the Milwaukee area, and there are those red lines. And what's shown on what those red lines are on-street facilities that are more than just striped painted bike lanes. They're lanes where you actually have some sort of physical barrier between the cars and the trucks and the buses and people on bikes, so that it's a much safer and feels much safer than an existing on-street bike facility. We have a few of these that are just starting to be built or have been recently completed in the region, and we really are recommending a pretty robust expansion of those. Next slide. Public transit is another really important part of our planning process, and something that we heard a lot about from people who participated in the SOC workshops. I was personally at all of the workshops for SOC, so I know exactly what we heard at those. And really the focus of our public transit recommendations can be simplified down to kind of two specific things. One is speeding up transit in the places where we currently have it. Right now, we have a fair amount of local transit service, particularly in Milwaukee County, but it's not very fast. And so it's much quicker to drive, and it's generally just not, it's going to be more difficult to use the bus compared to driving, and there's things we can do to make it easier to use the bus or other transit services. Then the second piece is extending it to suburban business parks that don't have transit service today. So running shuttles, buses, shared vehicles out to those business parks, so that if you don't have a car, you can still access the jobs out in those business parks. And in many cases, those jobs pay pretty well. And so those are important jobs to have access to, no matter where you live in the region. Next slide. So one of the things we have to do as part of our planning process, and Tammy talked about this when she mentioned the prioritization of different activities, is that we are limited under federal regulations to only moving forward what we can afford with existing funding streams. And so as part of that, we try to determine how much money we have under existing funding streams for different types of transportation investments compared to how much money we'd like to have. And in public transit in particular, there's a pretty big gap. About $250 million every year would be needed to get the transit system we recommend under Vision 2050. I'm not going to talk too much about streets and highways, but I want to note we're about $400 million a year behind on streets and highways, which is one of the reasons you see so many potholes in our region. Next slide. So again, a map, not necessarily the easiest thing to understand, but two things I want to point out here are that there are, when you're looking at the center in Milwaukee, on the center right of the map, there are these purple lines kind of stretching across Milwaukee County, and then one out into the city of Waukesha. Those purple lines represent rapid transit. And what rapid transit is any sort of transportation, any sort of transit that could be bus, could be rail, but it provides dedicated lanes. It's got nicer stations than a regular bus shelter, and it has other features that allow the vehicle, including the ability to influence traffic signals, traffic lights, so that the vehicle is not stopping at red lights, isn't stopping for passengers as frequently, and doesn't have to fight with cars for space on the road. Another thing I want to note is kind of in gold on that map, a little bit harder to see, are some commuter rail lines. And so those would be the fast way via transit to connect some of our suburban communities into Milwaukee and into the neighborhoods in Milwaukee. Next slide. So what was previously shown on the previous slide is what we recommend. That's what based on what we heard from the public, Regional Planning Commission is recommending to local units of government and to the state government. But here I talked about that funding piece, about $250 million gap. Here is what we can afford with our existing funding streams. It's actually less transit service than we have today by 2050. And this is a real problem for our region. It's a real problem because one, many of our competing peer metro areas across the country are expanding and investing in transit, and we are not to nearly the degree that they are. And then the other piece is related to equity. So I'll go to the next slide so we can talk about that a little bit. Oh, I should mention this. So I talked about this already. So I'll just mention that we do have recommendations around streets and highways where there should be additional lanes, where we should keep the same number of lanes, and really improvements in safety and the pavement quality and things like that are really what we're focused on our streets and highways element. Next slide. So we do equity analyses on a lot of our different planning efforts. And really what we're trying to answer are two questions. Are the benefits and impacts, so the positives and any negatives of any of our planning efforts, shared fairly and equitably across different population groups? And does the plan serve to reduce significant long-standing disparities between whites and people of color? And I talked about those disparities when I was talking at the beginning of the presentation, where I talked about our peer regions and how we compared to those. And so we really do have substantial disparities in our region. And so we try to look at whether or not our planning efforts, if they were implemented, would really reduce those disparities. Next slide. So why is that transit piece so important? Probably one of the easiest ways to think about this is how many jobs can you get to? Of course, jobs are not the only thing people use transit to get to, but they are a very important part of opportunity and ways for people to improve their livelihood by accessing higher wage jobs. And so one of the things we measured under our equity analysis was the number of jobs accessible within 30 minutes via transit. So the map on the left here, and again, you don't have to look at these too carefully because it's really just the impression I'm looking for here. So the map on the left is existing. The map in the middle is the year 2050 under our recommended plan. And the map on the right is the year 2050 based on what we can currently afford. And so the darker orange and red colors, those are more jobs. So the darkest red, which is actually centered on the near south side of Milwaukee, right where SOC serves and focuses, in the middle in that Vision 2050 map, that is representing having access to 200,000 or more jobs within 30 minutes via transit under our recommended transit plan. Whereas you can compare that to the map on the left, where we are today, or the map on the right, where we will be if we don't find more funding for transit. And you can see that it's many fewer jobs in that same area that would be accessible, more like 25 to 50,000 jobs as opposed to 200,000. And that's true across the region, as you can see on these maps. Next slide. So another way of looking at this is the percent of different population groups that have access to 10,000 or more jobs within 30 minutes via transit. So orange on this bar chart is today, the percents are across the bottom. Blue is under our recommended plan by 2050, and gray is 2050 if we don't find more funding for transit. And so you can see, for instance, families in poverty right in the middle, slightly more than 50% of families in poverty in the region today have access to 10,000 or more jobs within 30 minutes by transit. Under Vision 2050, that would be more like 85%. So a 30% increase in the number of families in poverty with access to jobs via transit. Whereas if we head down the path we're heading down for the next 30 years without making any changes, the percent's going to drop and the service level is going to get worse. And so you're talking about more like 30% of families in poverty having access to 10,000 or more jobs by transit. Next slide. And so why is transit in particular, or alternative modes besides driving, so important to the population groups that we consider under equity analyses? Well, one of the key things to think about is how many people in those population groups don't have access to a car. They don't live in a house that has a car, that owns a car. And so if you look at households led by people of color, they are almost 3 times more likely than a household led by a white person to not have access to a car within that house. If it's a household in poverty, they are 5 times as likely as people not in poverty to not have access to a car. So if we want people to be able to access jobs and education and medical services and their friends and parks and all those sorts of things, Without a car, we have to give people alternatives. And so that's one of the purposes of our transit recommendations in our plan. So how could we do this? The Regional Planning Commission doesn't take a specific position on, a specific tax increase or a specific way to do this, but we do note that most of our other peer areas across the country have what's called a dedicated revenue source for transit. And what we mean by dedicated is usually a specific tax. So it's usually a sales tax, anywhere from 0.5% to 1%. So for instance, right now in Milwaukee County, you're paying it's a 5.5% sales tax. So if you added 0.5% to that, made it 6%, that would get us a lot further towards this transit vision than where we're going to go if we don't do something different. So that's the sort of stuff that is done by most other peer cities across the country. And I think that's it. So I'm happy to take questions or any comments you have, Tammy.
Well, it's certainly like all that work, you can see how much more work it generates. Not only the
Yes.
report, but like how much work is still needed. I'm so disappointed to see that the budget is going to be reduced by the 35% in that public transit when that's the number one request. Did I catch that right? Like,
Yep.
it's being reduced, and the number one thing folks said they needed was going to be reduced.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll have, as you suggested, some ways to combat that, especially because it so already impacts those who are already disproportionately negatively impacted. I just wanted to note one thing is, you're right, we've hardly had any growth, but almost the statistics, when you roll them out, the growth that we have had can be 100% attributed to the growth in the Latino X population. And
Right.
so the very powerful fact to share with folks and to add to today's discussion. But also the 35 reduction, like you said, it doesn't respond to the number one request. It impacts equity, but also that means the less funds to even respond to environmental concerns or advancements. And so those are the things that hit me there. Let's see if we have any questions. Let me take a peek. Esperanza Gutierrez says, but the stadium tax is included in the 5.5 tax base that expires. So she's adding some information there.
Yeah. So actually, I had already subtracted that out. I can't remember if that's gone yet or not. But if it's
Okay.
if the stadium's still in there, it's 5.6, and if it's out, it's 5.5. So a little bit of an adjustment. But you're right, that's about to expire if it hasn't already. So.
Kevin, what's the next step folks can take in terms to be involved in these type of affairs for our community?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Wisconsin, the people who control how much funding you have for transit service are the state legislature. And so if people are particularly interested in what I just talked about, that is something that your state legislator and your state representative, your state senator have some influence over, and you could talk to them about it. Otherwise, there always are discussions at the city government and the county government about, smaller changes in transit and smaller changes in bike ped investments and things like that. So if that's what you're interested in, work with SOC to talk with the city and the county, because I think you guys have some good relationships there. So those are things that the public can influence as well. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Esperanza has a question. Will the fires on the coast and immigration affect this plan?
Esperanza has some great questions.
She is, and she was involved in this, some of the
Okay.
sessions, if I recall.
Yeah, that's great. So we don't know what the impact will be. It does seem, if you look at long-term climate change modeling as far as how it will impact migration within the country, I'm less. I know a fair amount too about how they think it'll impact migration across the borders too. But let's just talk about within the country right now. It does look like southeastern Wisconsin will be the sort of area that would be attractive to people. And the reason is because our winters will get a little less harsh, and then we have lots of water. And so there's certainly a possibility that, unless, of course, we do something dramatic on a national and worldwide scale to actually stop climate change or reduce it, assuming we're heading down the path we're heading down, it seems likely that, yes, there will be more migration to this area, which is not included in our population estimates for future growth. So that could mean we could have a higher growth rate in our region than we expected when we designed this plan. Probably the biggest thing that impacts right away is that actually makes alternatives to driving even more important, because if we don't have good alternatives to driving, that means everyone who moves here is going to be in a car, and our traffic's going to get a lot worse. So if you want less traffic, you got to give people alternatives like transit to get around.
Yeah, good points. Plus, Wisconsin, because of our high agricultural land and usage, still attracts migrant workers to be in particular. And also, we know that Milwaukee has a long-standing tradition since it was, colonized of immigrants. And so it's a landing spot for immigrants. And then in addition to that, our district in particular, which is 70% Latino, tends to be inviting to folks where they feel safe, which is people who look like them and share some of the same cultural heritage and norms. And so we should expect some of that. And then, of course, maybe people are deterred a little bit because of the former still existing anti-immigrant sentiment in the Wisconsin legislature. And so we'll see where that lands. But we have points to readjust those calculations moving forward, right? Because this is a dynamic, ongoing process.
Yes.
Before I let you go, Kevin, where can people contact you? Let's share that in the comments section.
Sure.
Or your office.
Yeah. Do you want me to just give the email address and you guys can copy it over? Okay.
Yeah. You can say it and type it in the private chat.
Okay.
And that can be moved over into the comments section.
Okay. So my email address is K, M as in Mary, UHS at SEWRPC.org, or my phone number is 262-953-4288. And then I'll just throw a few few websites in here too, where people can get more information.
Yeah, like where can they find this report in particular?
Yeah, this report there's a unique website just for Vision 2050 that I'm throwing in the chat right now. That can be sent over to everybody.
Are any of those available in Spanish, Kevin?
Yes, yeah. The websites can be translated, and that's Google Translate. So, yeah. But the actual Vision 2050 report document has been translated, so that is available as well. If somebody has difficulty getting to it, let us know, and we can get you one. So.
All right, Kevin. Thank you so much for being with us. Glad we were able to share the results of everybody's contributions. Be safe.
Thank you. You too.
I'm going to turn it back now to my co-moderator for the day, Maria.
Thank you, Tammy. So once again, thank you, Kevin, for the very informative segment and for being here with us. So now I would like to encourage you all to say hi so we can see who's all here with us today. And then let me just read some of the comments so far. I know some of you guys were commenting. Carolyn said, congratulations, Maria. Thank you, Carolyn. Mary put a hi emoji. Hello. And Carolyn, hello, glad to be here. Diana Becerra commented, hello, everyone. Maria Alicea, hola. And then Esperanza with the great questions. Thank you so much, Esperanza, for that. So yeah, feel free, don't be shy to comment and say hi to us as we continue our forum. So next we have our coronavirus update. For today's update, we will be showing a video that will give us information about domestic violence resources during the time of COVID-19.
Hello, my name is Marlene Zaran, as many of you already know who watch this forum. For the COVID-19 segment for today, we're going to be going over domestic violence resources. So let me just share my screen. So the Southside Organizing Center has created this document that is also available to you on our website. It is a list of Milwaukee domestic violence nonprofits for women that will help men and women, actually, that can help transition a woman out of a domestic violence situation and help with any resources such as food and shelter. So the first one is the Sojourner Family Peace Center, spelled SOJOURNER FAMILY PEACECENTER. It operates in Milwaukee 24/7. It's a confidential hotline that you can call at 414-933-2722. And they offer assistance for filing restraining orders as well, and you can call that number at 414-278-5079. Center is open Monday through Thursday from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Fridays. The second one we have is the Milwaukee Women's Center. You can call them at 414-671-6140 to learn more about their services or to speak to a domestic violence crisis counselor that is available 24/7. The Milwaukee Women's Center, we will post the link in our site, but if you also go to this document, you can click directly onto these blue links and it'll take you right to the website that you're trying to get a hold of. The next one is the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center for Domestic Violence. The center is open from 11 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday and 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Fridays. Services are available on weekends through appointment only. Next is the Aisha Project, which serves African American women in Milwaukee and provides a crisis line from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can call them at 414-252-0075. The next organization that we have on here is the Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition, which is can be contacted at 414-727-4900, and they are open from Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on weekends. We've had the Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition CEO and president on the forum, and she has informed us that they do not only serve women who are Muslim or families who are Muslim, they serve all women that come to their door in need of help. Next is the Hmong American Women's Association. They serve the Hmong and Southeast Asian community. You can call them at 414-930-9352. They are available from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. You can also call the Wisconsin Hmong Family Strengthening Helpline that is available after hours at 877-740-4292. We also have the Umos Latina Resource Center. Hello, my name is Marlene Zaran, as many of you already know who watch this forum. For the COVID-19 segment for today, we're going to be going over domestic violence resources. So let me just share my screen. So the Southside Organizing Center has created this document that is also available to you on our website. It is a list of Milwaukee domestic violence nonprofits for women that will help men and women, actually, that can help transition a woman out of a
Please bear with us. We're having some technical difficulties right now, trying to continue the video with the very helpful information that Marlene has been giving us so far. As you listen to this, make sure that you're asking any type of questions that you might have or concerns. And thank you again for your patience. So we're just waiting on the second part of the video to play now. Please feel free to, okay, so we're just gonna move on to the next section. I'm so sorry about that once again. But next we have our civic and census update. So we will have Gabe with some information on the census.
Hey everyone, so over the past few months, I know a lot of you have gotten messages from SOC staff that take you to a messenger bot called Project Pulso. And they've been about various topics, but the latest one has been about the census. So I just want to take a couple minutes to show you how to use and interact with this messenger bot, and then more importantly, how you can share it with your friends and family and contacts on Facebook, because that's our biggest ask, is that you all share this with your contacts so that everyone is filling out the census. I'm sure the majority of people that are listening to this right now have already filled it out, but this would be your opportunity to share this with other people so that people you know are filling out the census. So I'm going to go ahead and present my screen for all of you to see what it looks like. So you would get something that looks like this in your inbox from one of the SOC staff. In this case, it was Marisol that sent it to us, who's our communications manager. And the most important thing to keep in mind here is that you have to hit get started before you share it out. So I know it's confusing. The image has that blue square that says share with the arrow to the little triangle on the right side of the message blurb. But what you have to do is hit get started. So once you hit get started, it will take you to a conversation with Project Pulso, and it will send out all of the different text messages that have the information we're trying to get you all to read. So in this case, it's about the census, like I said. Hey, it's Gabe Charles from the Southside Organizing Center. Some information about the census and how crucial it is, especially for hospitals and public schools, how it determines funding for the next decade. Then you see the image. And then what it's going to do is ask you that if you haven't already, go to this link to complete the census. So in this case, if you have not completed the census, you would hit complete census, or you would hit that link that's already in the message. But most of you have probably already done the census. So we're going to hit census already done. So census is already done. It's going to say thank you for doing your part. And then it's going to ask you to share this out to people. And this is where we really need all of you. So you'll hit yes, I will share. And then it's going to send you what you will send to other people. This is where you will hit the share button on the right side so that you can share it out to your contacts. So it's really, the most important thing is that you're hitting get started and that you're sharing it from the conversation with Project Pulso and not from the conversation with whoever sent you the initial bot. right? So just make sure that it says Project Pulso on top when you're hitting the little share triangle on the right side. And then it's going to just take you to a list of your contacts, your Facebook friends, and you can just send it out to people to ask them to fill out the census. And if you are willing to then explain to them to make sure they hit get started, so then they can send it out to their contacts and just create a network of people receiving this message so that we can get this important information out to people. We know that there is still a very low percent of responses for the census on the South Side and the district that SOC serves. So we really want to get this out there in the last couple weeks, not even 2 weeks, just about 12 days left that we have to fill out the census. So please, please be willing to share this out. Let us know if you have any questions about it, if you have any issues with it. Sometimes it only allows you to share with 5 people at a time, but if you just go through the process again, you can share to another 5 people. But again, please let us know if you have any questions. We are here to answer them and are thankful to anyone willing to share this out. Hey everyone, so over the past few months, I know a lot of you have got.
Thank you, Gabe, for that information. So yeah, just know that if we are sending you this bot type of message, it's not spam. We just want to make sure that you guys are filling out your census and that you're sharing this information with family and friends as well. So next we're gonna have another video, civic and census related as well.
Mami immigrated to California from El Salvador in the 80s. She was alone and had to start a new life in a new country. When I look at my daughter, I remember the sacrifices Mami made for me. Even though it was hard, she made us feel like we had it all. She taught us the value of hard work and that we should always reach for our dreams. She also taught us how to have fun and enjoy the small things in life. But most importantly, Mami always made us feel like we counted, that we mattered and had a voice. Now, she's counting on me to participate in the 2020 census. And I won't let her down.
Folks, I also want to share with you that today is Andrea's first day as the lead producer. So as we transition and train folks and they get practice, it's going to take a little bit for all of us. Just like when the first team, the original forum team first started, we had some glitches. So it's just, human nature. We're learning and experimenting. And so thanks for your patience. And we're expanding our team, and it'll take a little bit to get everybody acclimated to all this digital technology. All right, now I'm going to bring Marianne, and she's going to introduce an interview she did with the Resident Association, which is long awaited by me. I love to see our Resident Association leaders. I love to lift their voice up, so I'm so excited that they're starting to come in now.
Yeah, so up next is our SOC feature for today. So for today's SOC feature, we will have an interview that I did with Simi, the president of Walker's Point Association residents. So Simi will be telling us more about Walker's Point Association and some events that are coming up. Just bear with us, please, as we show this video. Sorry about that.
We're all working from home just like you all, folks. We have family, friends. It looks like we're having a sound problem with this video, so we'll get it. We'll give it one more try. If not, we'll have to show it next week. In the meantime, let's see if we have any new folks saying hello. Let's see here. Thank you, Travis, for getting all of the sewer packs, Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission resources up there. I see you got the Vision 2050 page on and how to contact them if you have any questions. All right, folks, looks like we're not able to get that video going this time. We'll work on making sure we share that soon on a SOC feature. So at this point, we'll just go ahead, Maria, and move into the next section with reminders. Or
Okay.
actually, I take that back. Marisol, let's remind people to fill out the survey.
Has this live forum been informative and useful to you? What part of the forum could be improved or changed to make it better? Please take a quick survey that's located in the comments section so that we can keep 3 o'clock with SOC going for residents. Thank you for tuning in.
All right, Maria, now we can do the reminders.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to go over just some reminders with you all. So I'll start off by introducing our segments for next week. Next week, Monday, we have our civic engagement team. Then on Tuesday, we'll have the youth back with us. So that's exciting. And Wednesday, we have our Spanish Day. Thursday, it's our coronavirus segment with a very special guest, the president from the Milwaukee Muslims Women's Association. And then Friday, again, with our community organizing, leadership, and community development team. So I hope to see you all there on our forums next week. Once again, we would like to extend our solidarity with protesters and families during these times. And our thoughts and prayers are with those impacted by COVID-19, especially in illness and death. I would like to welcome Tammy back for any additional comments and to conclude our session for today.
Thank you, Maria. You made it through your first forum. You did an outstanding job.
Thank you. I'm glad. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias. Right? It wasn't so bad now? She's
No,
it's
better.
All right. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Andrea, for her first time producing. That was challenging, but we all survived, right, mi gente? So thank you all, and we're going to leave you with a thank you video for our partners who help us with funding.
Hello, viewers. I am Esperanza Gutierrez, a longtime resident of the near South Side. We would like to thank everyone for supporting our 3 o'clock with SOC live show and for completing our SOC survey. In addition to thanking our residents for tuning in and sharing our show, we would also like to thank the following sponsors: Wisconsin Voices, Community Development Block Grant, Neo Philanthropy State Infrastructural Fund, the Movement Voter Project, the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, the Silber Foundation, City of Milwaukee Office of Violence Prevention, the Ties Foundation, the City of Milwaukee Promise Zone, and all the faithful individuals who support SOC through their personal donations. Thank you. Gracias.